The relationship between men and mental health has often been called a silent crisis. On this podcast, we're breaking the silence. Welcome to Mental Health. It's time to talk. Here's your host, Alan Kaler.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time to tune in. On today's show, we have a passionate entrepreneur, an author, a motivational speaker, a proud Métis man. Who am I talking about? Yes, that is correct. That would be Cody Demerais. Cody, welcome.
Thank you very much, buddy. What an introduction. I love it.
Cody, here's what I know about you. You have had a very fascinating journey. And from what I know about you were forced to grow up rather quickly.
Yeah, most definitely, buddy. First of all, I just want to say thank you so much for the invitation to be on your awesome podcast and your streaming, everything going on. I love it. So thank you very much, bud. But yeah, when I was age 11, I started working almost full time during the summer, whatever grade I was in between at that time, to start helping pay for some of the things that weren't necessarily necessities, but were things that I wanted in life. You know, to play a couple extra sports like hockey was my main ambition to start working so young. You know, some clothes actually that weren't as hand-me-downs or, you know, too short for my legs as they grew like sticks, right? But yeah, it made me grow up and realize that, you know, deep down inside, if you want something to happen, it's on you to go out in the world and try and make it happen.
Well, that's what I love about you, Cody. You've always had this fighting spirit. You've understood that it's up to you to create your own life of happiness. You've always had that grind. And we've talked about this before, where as kids, we just have this natural need to fit in, to belong. And that was no different for you.
Yeah, no, most definitely, buddy. I kind of seen myself a little bit when I was growing up in grade school and stuff like that, maybe being a little sensitive like we were just talking about before. But I definitely felt, like you said, the word before, empathetic about everything going around and going on in the world around me. So, you know, when my mom worked at Weyerhaeuser for 28 and a half plus years here in Prince Albert, pretty much a staple of our economy, and for, you know, 700 plus other families around this area. So when she lost her job and I seen what she went through to try to continue to make things work, you know, working different jobs that she hasn't worked in 30 years or whatever it may be, I definitely seen a responsibility pop up in the back of my head that it's time to kind of step up. And I used to see it as a disadvantage in life. Now, I'm not saying all 11-year-olds need to go start working, but I think it ingrained a work ethic in me for many of the reasons why I am where I am today.
Well, let's dive into this sensitivity for a moment before we continue, because I think that it's worthy of a decent conversation. You were a child, as was I, who was simply sensitive to one's surroundings. And the problem was that we both grew up at a time when it wasn't perhaps the norm to show emotion or sensitivity, and therefore we kind of had to suppress that energy. And when we suppress the energy, then we run into problems.
Most definitely, buddy. Just like we know, me and yourself, when you build things up and bottle things up, what happens at the end? It's not a pretty sight, to be honest, sometimes, right? And you know, that's why these things need to exist. Like your streaming podcast here, man. It's why people like us need to exist, of speaking about our emotional downfalls that we had growing up, maybe. So to some of the past that we've been through, to show others that may not be there, may grew up in the same generation, that you don't talk about it, or, you know, you bottle it up, or you learn how to cope in a whole sort of different, dangerous other outlook in life, right? That's why these things need to exist. So I commend you for starting a podcast like this and staying with it, my man.
Well, thanks, Cody. Right back at you. We know things now that probably we wish we had known earlier, but because we didn't, then we tried to manage these emotions in probably some unhealthy ways. And you have shared very publicly that you had your own struggles with substance use.
Yeah, no, for sure, buddy. And you know what? A big sense of addiction stems from a lot of trauma, and that could be all sorts of different levels. Of course, I'm not a psychiatrist or anything like that. I just speak from past experiences and past seeing what a lot of my circles and everything like that branched out kind of turned into. So when you're dealing with some sort of issue, you learn to try and cope with it or, self-medicate basically. And a lot of times, because maybe not the best guidance or maybe just unsure of how to deal with what you're going through, you start to cope in maybe more or less not the most progressive ways, right? Like addictions and substance abuse issues. I think I was about 11 years old actually when I tried my first hand at some marijuana and started drinking at an early age as well. And you know what? When you start at that age, your brain hasn't even began to start developing where it should be, of course, right? And don't get me wrong, it's plenty of years after that it's still developing. But when you start ingesting those kind of toxins into your body at that young of an age, and you're naturally a person that likes to take things to another level, it only escalates from there, my man. So yeah, I did follow the path of addictions. And unfortunately with addictions, you always need a little something more to knock off the same edge that you got the first time. So it ended up becoming such a rolling spiral growing through my teenager years that I was drinking enough to maybe probably intoxicate 3 people at the same time kind of thing, right? And doing enough drugs where the average person might be, a little intoxicated or overboard. But for myself, I was kind of just trying to feel a sense of belonging. But at the same time, I was looking for a way to cope and numb myself, to be honest.
Yeah. And that gives good insight as to the why, because I still feel as though today we live in this world where so many people aren't quite sure about why one would turn to that. Why would they choose that? And sure, initially there is a choice, but choice gets blurred once we become physiologically dependent, psychologically dependent. And exactly like you said, if you have some kind of a reward from a substance or an action, you're going to continue to do it. And when you lack the tools, then we just grab at straws and we just want to experience pleasure like everyone else does so that we can have momentary escape from pain.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you more, my man. Truly.
So then, Cody, you reach this point, and I think that a lot of us have some kind of a proverbial fork in the road where we can either go left or we can go right. And there is one incident that you frequently share, and it has to do with the time when you left a house party with your best friend. And what transpired after that set you on a completely different course.
Well, it's definitely, man. You know what? When me and my good friend were involved in a car accident when we were about a week prior to grade 12 starting, it started a chain of events that was unhealthy in every situation for myself, my best friend, his family, my family, everyone that was around us. But one night, me and my good friend, one of my best friends, was at a house party like you mentioned. And you know what? My car was there and we had a driver even earlier before that night. And unfortunately, we just wanted to stay a little bit longer, call it young or whatever it is. But yeah, of course, when we wanted to leave the house party, my car is in front of the house. It being my car and being intoxicated as much as I was, and truthfully just reckless as I was when I was younger, I thought it was a good idea to get behind the wheel because I thought, you know what? I've done it a couple times here and there before. What's going to hurt tonight's situation if I do again? But to be honest, as much alcohol as I had in my system. There's no way I should have been around a vehicle, let alone behind the wheel, unfortunately. And, later on after we left that party, we hit a tree going 116, coming to a complete stop. It was life impacting, life altering, and life changing for many of us, including myself, including my best friend. And you know what? I dealt with PTSD for years because of it. I dealt with anger and worse substance abuse issues because of it, because of that fact of what happened. And you know what? In full honesty, I tried to take my life within a few weeks of that car crash because I remember hearing somebody mentioning that he wasn't going to make it through the night. And I remember thinking to myself, you know what? I shouldn't be around if that's the case. As an empathetic person and as a person that was full of guilt and anger for myself, I seen as an injustice if he was not going to be around and I was still going to be here. So like I said, after a very emotional night, of course, and kind of enough tears to, fill up a bathtub, I basically tried to hang a belt from the rafters, and I fully committed to not being around anymore, which, as we both can see, I'm still here today. But I woke up the next morning with half the belt hanging by the ceiling and the other half around my neck still. Now, it's one of the reasons why I like to think I am still here, because I have a purpose to help others by my story, my brand, and, coming in connection with great folks like yourself, buddy.
Cody, I very much appreciate your vulnerability, your transparency, your openness, your honesty. Angela's also chiming in, and it's so true. It's hard to stand up and take that accountability. Kudos. And
thank you, Angela.
It is not easy initially talking about some of our pain. Now, I think, Cody, you and I are at a place where this is what we do, so perhaps it's not as emotionally charged, but I do know that you very quickly understood the power of a story. You were very passionate after that event took place with your friend, that you wanted to convey a message. You wanted to openly talk about what you went through together, what could have happened, and you started to take that message and share it openly with youth. Why did you make that decision?
Well, truthfully, right from the get-go, it was somebody approached, I do believe, my good friend's family about the situation and about what had happened and everything like that, and kind of reached out to us and asked if me and my good friend that was in the crash together, if we want to do presentations on behalf of, of course, safe driving and everything like that. I still remember one of our first presentations that we did together. We basically held a microphone, for 2 minutes each and had a slideshow, but I definitely know it was super healing for both of us to do it, even though, we didn't speak completely for the full hour like me and you are used to now. It was healing in itself, and each and every single time we did it, we were always nervous. We were always very timid a little bit to kind of make it happen, but what we went through, what his family, what my family, and what we both individually went through in our own different ways, we had a call-in basically to, maybe help somebody else out, not make the same decision by sharing the story of what we went through. You know what? For years and years, I couldn't handle what had happened because of course, I blame myself, which it was my fault and everything like that. But I felt like a little piece of me came back each and every single presentation. And I know it's quite a bit for the same for my good friend that we did those presentations together. And you know what? We did a few each and every single year to some rural schools and everything like that. And my love for continuing to do so just continued on. And I realized there, after some of the kids that, you would look at in the start of the presentation that would be talking to each other, not paying attention kind of thing. And they were the ones coming up to us, shaking our hands after, saying, thank you for sharing your story. Even seeing some of those ones that weren't paying attention right off the bat, kind of teary eyes and everything like that. It made you realize that something's happening here. Some sort of impact is happening with some of these youth, if not all of them. So why not keep making cause and effect for the better?
It's beautiful. I mean, obviously you're still here because you have unfinished business, and the world is certainly a brighter place having Mr. Cody Demerais in it. And you found out very early the power in sharing your story, how it connects people. And I think what I'm going to guess resonates with so many people, because it resonates with me, Cody, is you're just simply authentic. There is no facade. There's no proverbial mask. You just say it how it is. And you know, Neil Campbell is joining us this evening, and he says, helping is healing. Healing is helping. Hey, man, that's what you do.
That's beautifully said, Neil. And you know what? That's what we both do, man. And that's why that thankful lady pointed us into the same direction, because we definitely had to converse. And I appreciate your help and support, because you've helped my speaking continue on a little bit, you know, helping me out with some guidelines, some tips. And so I've always appreciated that about our connection from the start, buddy.
Honored. I love the work that you're doing. And I'm curious about this whole process of healing, because as you alluded to earlier, Cody, PTSD was present. Guilt is an emotion that so many people struggle with. Speaking is one way for us to become free from that emotion. But what were some of those other tools that you turned to help navigate through the trauma?
So I'll be honest, of course, right? That's the name of the game. Authentic. Oh my God, buddy. Please help me with that word. Thank you very much, Mr. Alec.
No problem.
No, but yeah, truthfully, my man, that was it. And you know what I've experienced over the past few years? Every time I wasn't being real to who I was naturally, or to who I should be naturally, I felt always caving and pulling towards things that weren't healthy for me. So it started making me realize, you know what, just be flat out, be who I am. Because you know what, man, you could walk on water and somebody might not like the way you walk on that water, right? So just be authentic, be you, because there's a million other people in the world, but you know what, there's only one you, there's only one Alan Keller, there's only one Cody Demerais. So, you know what, being authentic has helped me heal in the past, and it continues to help me. And you know what, it's continued to help me in my business, because when I'm on a phone call about anything else, including business, I think it's a great reason why I get to continue doing what I love doing, is because I'm not a salesperson. I'm doing what I enjoy. I'm doing what I believe in, the same as you. And that's why we get to continue doing what we do. And you know what, speaking of, you know, kind of escapes, or, you know, how to grow with yourself and all these tools, the speaking and telling the story from like a great Aboriginal story sense has helped me a great deal. Yes. So as being active, you know what, I have an addictive personality. I know we've chatted about it. It's who, you know, we are and everything like that. So it's finding what you can be addictive to, I believe, in a productive, healthy way. So for years, when I did get sent away for that car crash to the correctional and got sent up to a work camp, my only kind of avenue of still healing, because I didn't have an audience in front of me at that time, was working out. And you know what, something I still do, I try to do as much as possible to this day, because I don't go there to the gym and try and get a six-pack after leaving the gym. You know, I like my fast food, sort to say. I can literally go to the gym and grab a greasy burger on my way home. But it's more or less the mental health therapy that does for me. And a lot of people have, you know, kind of said sometimes here and there about my work ethic and how much I do kind of work. But to be honest, when you believe in your work in itself, it can be one of the most transferring, beautiful things you can do in your life if you can put so much of your extra energy into creating something that may just help a next person that hears that message or story. That becomes an addiction in itself of making a difference in a wave. So
yeah, you live your passion. And listen, I am very, very far away from having a six-pack. That is why it's very beneficial that this camera angle is above. I have a beautiful, what do they call it? A dad bod. It continues to get softer with each day, but I digress. You give a good segue into this work ethic. And I would say it like this. There are people who dream, and then there are people who do. You obviously being the latter. And I love the fact that when you have an idea, you're not afraid to run with the idea, to be vulnerable, to take risks, to step outside your comfort zone. You had a passion to carry your message through a clothing brand. So what does Cody Demerais do? He gets a couple of t-shirts, he chucks it in this trunk, and off we go.
That's right, my man. You know what's the original idea of having a clothing brand stemmed from a grade school project. It was, I believe, grade 1, an art project. The teacher told us very simply, come out with your own brand, your own label, using the things that were personal to you. So for me back then, when I was in grade school, of course, it was hockey sticks, maybe a basketball, and my initials. Really authentic back then. But you know what? It resembled who I was back then. And yeah, after running into a couple people that I have met in the past years ago, that they were telling me about a clothing brand that they started out, and you know what? It kind of just stopped. It teetered out, and they just kind of stopped going along with it. And I remembered this art project, maybe because my empathetic feelings back in the day of getting a little bit teased for some of the clothes that I had to wear a little bit extra longer because, you know, of course, their financials weren't necessarily flowing through the front door. So, like I said, I wore some clothes that maybe were a little shorter for my liking or, you know, appearance when I was younger. And I felt like I was a little bit teased for it because of it. So it all kind of stuck with me a little bit to get teased for some of the clothing you would wear. And it kind of stemmed the idea after reading a few self-help books that, you know what, I used to be the person that parents would warn their kids to stay away from because I was too rambunctious or I was too much of a loose cannon. So I started realizing myself, why don't I do, you know, something that stuck with me since I was a young kid, but not only just make a t-shirt brand, because that's never what I wanted to do. I wanted to empower every single person that wore the brand, and I wanted to inspire people into following their own dreams from the get-go. As soon as they heard the message, they knew it was not just a t-shirt brand, and that's what I love to do each and every single day.
Love it. And I think that is exactly why you've been able to find such success. It's not just clothing for people to own and wear that message. So when life is limitless, you know, I would love to hear in your own words what that means to you. And also, if you can just speak to this idea of hope, because as you and I know right now, with all that's going on, there are a lot of people who are struggling.
Most definitely. And like we were talking about before, that's truly what's been burning me out a little bit more or so lately, is the fact that there's so much division in the world. There's so much hate for each other for personal opinions. You know what? We're a lot stronger standing side by side, maybe a little distance right now, but still, you know, I mean, we're stronger together. And it's been proven time and time again, when a community stands up for each other, beautiful things can happen. But when an individual steps out and, you know, doesn't care about everyone else because this is my opinion and that's the way it is, it doesn't work. And you know what? There's just a lot of anger in the world, and I would really hope that we can find a way to get over that anger for each other and just come together in a metaphorically speaking. But yeah, life is limitless. I knew, like I said, I wanted to empower people. And you know what? Coming from somebody that I was told when I was 16 that 2 things were going to happen in my life if I didn't turn things around in my life. One, I was going to wind up in jail at some point in my life, which, 3 years later, 19, that's where I ended up. And the second thing was that I was going to find myself passing away before my life even began to live. And shortly after that crash, of course, trying to take my own life. It was very close at that time, let alone years later when I was still dealing with substance abuse issues and getting to the point where I felt like I was about to overdose over and over again. So when somebody empowers themselves, somebody believes in what they can accomplish, some beautiful things can happen in itself. So instead of being told you are never going to amount to much, the alternative, of course, right? Telling somebody that you can accomplish whatever you set your mind to, because we all have the hidden limitless potential deep down inside of us, because we're the architects of our own lives. We design, we create, and we manufacture how we see the life that we want to live. So when it comes down to it, why wouldn't we want to make our lives as beautiful as possible, as well empowering others?
Yeah, you say it beautifully. Jennifer Peterson's actually chiming in. I think she echoes this. She says, "Hi, Cody, you are such a positive role model for your community." And this is true. And I want to talk briefly about that, because you do have a strong presence in your community right now, being Prince Albert, but obviously beyond. Why is it important for you to be part of the community, to be an active, keyword active member of your community?
That's a very good question. And thank you, Jennifer. I appreciate that. Why I believe that community's got to stand together so much is, for a fact, no one tries to take their life when they think they have an abundance of people around them that care about them. I know what it's like to be at the end of the rope, per se, and feel like you are completely alone in the world, even though you aren't. So by sharing how important community is, maybe somebody hears that message that believes they're alone at the time, right? But they seek out somebody else because they believe, you know what, my community is a little bit more than what I think it is. So how empowering is that too? You never know that you can change somebody's life by just showing them another door to their future. And I love everything about my community. Truly, I would not be where or who I am without my community that has completely embraced the brand and the message of the speaking and everything that I've ever done. I would not be where I am today without a community behind me. And it shows time and time again. And I believe that's everyone could say that. It's not an individual journey that I've got here by. Don't get me wrong, I've gone through a lot of ups and downs and hit my head on a few posts, but community has been there many times, and I'm very deeply appreciative of that.
I appreciate the humility, and no doubt the community has been there for you. You are also there for the community. Your light is on. People come to you because of the energy that you emit, and you are a leader. In fact, today, Cody, was a pretty cool day, and I need to say a huge congratulations, because it is a beautiful thing. And you do not do things to be recognized or to be honored, because you have that beautiful humility, which I love. But it is nice to be validated, and you have been validated. And today you kind of had to give that potential acceptance speech for the Sabex Award. How was that?
Yeah, so don't get me wrong, buddy. I love to, remember where my roots are, but it's an amazing honor to be acknowledged, for sure it is, for some of the work you've done. Now, it's not necessarily understood fully, as some of the hours that may go into something that you create, of course, but when somebody does get recognized, even if you don't get recognized, the hours that you put in to see something created and expressed by so many others is a beautiful thing in itself. But yeah, a couple of weeks ago, I got a phone call saying, you know what, Cody Demerais, you were up for Young Entrepreneur of the Year for Saskatchewan through the Chamber of Commerce ABEX Awards. And you know what? It was even a very big highlight. The next day, I got another phone call saying, you know what, Cody, unfortunately, we mislooked over something. My heart was about to burst deep down inside my chest. I just paused for a second, waited for it. And the person mentioned, you know what, Cody, you're up for another recognition for the provincial wide ABEX award for Limitless Gear. You're up for a new venture of the year as well. So 2 provincial recognized awards for Saskatchewan Chamber of Commerce. Saskatchewan's ABEX awards are the longest business awards in our province. So a couple of years ago when I first started the store, I was lucky enough to be a finalist for Young Entrepreneur for Prince Albert. That was an incredible honor in itself to, just only be open for a couple months at that time. It showed my life was turning around for the better. Now, that's kind of unfortunate to say because, you know what, my life did turn around for the better without any recognition. But you're right, to be told that, you know what you're doing is making a difference. And it's not only being recognized in Prince Albert's limits, it's being recognized provincially wide. So I gave 2 pre-recorded speeches today. And you know what? I worked for the past week to come out with such a couple awesome speeches, one for each one for the pre-recorded acceptance speeches that will be mentioned later on. But I looked at the paper and I just kind of went with it and I winged it. And you know what? There's nothing like speaking from the heart, buddy. And like that, anyone, right?
Well, congratulations, Cody. And yeah, elders always remind us, just wear your words, speak from that authentic place, which you do. And whether or not you win, like I was going to say, you're a winner in my book, which I guess is true, but that sounds very, well, I don't know how that sounds, but I'm proud of you. And it just speaks to the way that you're leading your life. And this is what we were talking about before. We all want to fit in, we want to belong, and it's just so cool that you were able to turn that corner and that people in the community, people around the province, let's just say the world, can look at what you've done. And that's what it's all about. Look where he was, look where he is. And my question for you, Cody, is what's next?
That's a big question, isn't it? I have to think about it once in a while myself, buddy. But you know what? I appreciate your kind words for sure. I do. And you know what? What's next is I just want to be able to continue doing what I'm doing the way I enjoy it, because the moment I don't enjoy it anymore is the moment I don't do it no more. And you know what? My public speaking is something that I cherish so dearly. My brand is something that I cherish so dearly. And you know what? I feel like I got to mix it up and add in another arsenal to, doing something better for the community, just whatever that is. And so I've been working on a little bit of some workshop facilitating. So I'm building currently a confidence workshop for youth that I am going to be offering through Zoom, through a virtual platform. I'm going to start off small, 6 to 8 students at a time. Probably not do it through groups first, just do it through individual parents that might want their kids doing a confidence workshop. They might think that, hey, you know what? This guy's been through the ringer. Let's see if he can add a little incentive to giving a pat on our boy or our girl's back, to show that they can be a leader themselves. And I would love nothing more into encouraging people that, you know what, you can rise like a phoenix that you are and become whatever you want to become.
There you have it. And it's like we've spoken about this definition, if you will, of addiction. It's this way to live outside of self so that you don't have to be with self. And basically what you're doing is you're giving people this ability to connect with themselves in an authentic way, to feel. And it's the whole inside out. Like your recovery, your life really has to come from within.
Couldn't have said it better than that, buddy. Truthfully, anyone that's in recovery, any shape or form, whatever that recovery may look like to you, don't get me wrong, I still have my down days. I still have my days that I am not fully there. And you know what? Past couple of weeks, I wasn't there the past couple of weeks. My work ethic went down. Everything went down for a while. And it's not saying I wasn't trying my best to keep up. I just didn't have that motivation. I didn't have that energy. But, you know what? It's about how you come back. It's about how you bounce back and do what's going to be next, right? So you can stew and be in a low all you want for the rest of your life. But the truth is, unless you decide it's time to step up again and do something about it, you're going to just stay there.
Well, I love the fact that you have that awareness, first of all, because you can look at self and feel and understand that, you know what, today I'm struggling. The difference is that you don't become complacent. You don't allow yourself to get stuck there. You persevere, you grind through it like you've done your whole life. And you have this belief that this too shall pass. But I also love that you're just authentic about it.
I appreciate that, buddy. And truthfully, man, I don't know anything else, to be honest. I am who I am, and it's worked out. And I love doing it, and I don't feel like I'm doing anything wrong. So all the creations, all the things that I try, all sorts of different times of the day and different ideas that pop in my head at 3:00 in the morning, and I just want to express it at that moment. It's about that self-expression, about creating something that's going to be an impactful way for many others. If I didn't have that, I would not be the person I am today. And I definitely know that would be a shame, because I love who I am today, no matter the highs, no matter the lows. And that is what we should strive for, no matter what we do.
And that is where we have a mic drop. Yeah, man, like you love yourself. That's a beautiful thing. You and I both were at a place for so long where there's no way that we could have openly and honestly said that, because it was not there. But the only way you get there is by doing the work. And that's what I love about you. Now, you said that you have the youth workshops. So anybody looking to strengthen that relationship with self, instill confidence in youth, or if they're schools, educators, Cody's great connection. You have the clothing line, you have the speaking. What is the best way for people to connect with you, Cody?
Well, like how we were just talking about before, my man, that we're pretty wired into our social medias, and we have to understand that, truthfully, that can wear down a person eventually, right here and there, which it can, because there's so much information coming at us. I once heard that we get so much information in a day that it would take people lifetimes to get back in the day. I'm not exactly sure of the years and proximity, whatever it may be, but I am still very deeply wired in. And you know what? I am still always a phone call, a text, or a message away from one of my social media platforms. Cody Demerais, just Facebook, Cody Demerais Motivational Speaker, Facebook, or my Instagram, Cody Demerais, or Limitless Gear Clothing. I will be there for reaching back, I promise you. Now, I might not respond that very instance, because after a few platforms of going through, every few minutes, you have to actually do some work in the real world, right? So, but I do my very best. I truthfully do my very best to try and reply and respond to every single message I ever get. And yeah, I've missed one or two in my lifetime, don't get me wrong, but I do my very best to respond, even if it might be a couple days later.
I know that. I see that. I also know that when people walk into your store, Cody, you take the time to listen, and that is a powerful thing. I truly love the work that you're doing. I have the utmost admiration and respect for you, and I really appreciate you taking the time to share some of your insights with us.
Very gracious of you to say, buddy. I appreciate you reaching out and inviting me to this. And you know what? I'm very grateful that we've chatted right from the beginning when we first started introducing each other, and it's been a great friendship, and I look forward to continuing on our friendship, buddy. So thank you.
Me too, brother. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time to tune in. Take good care. Keep talking. And yes, be well.